Thank you for tuning in to watch our Invest Philadelphia Leadership Summit. You're about to watch panel number 1, Emotional Health and Responsible Tech, Education's new core learning goals and their impact at school and in the workplace. Be sure to like and subscribe for more leadership content. Enjoy.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm honored to represent CBIZ, which is a national provider of accounting, tax, insurance, technology, and advisory services, with deep roots in and a longstanding commitment to our region here in Philadelphia. While we bring the depth of a national platform, our impact is local. Our teams live here. We raise families here. We serve as board members, volunteers, mentors, and neighbors across the city and surrounding communities. For us, partnership isn't a slogan, it's how we show up. Philadelphia's Eds and Meds community is the heartbeat of this region. They educate the next generation, advance discovery, innovate, and deliver care and education to those who need it the most. CBIZ is proud to support this mission. In education, we help school districts, charter networks, independent schools, and colleges and universities strengthen financial resilience, enhance compliance, and plan for the future. From budgeting and audit readiness to risk management, cybersecurity, employee benefits, and workforce planning, we focus on practical solutions that free leaders to stay centered on students and learning. In healthcare, we partner with health systems, academic medical centers, technology companies that are innovating far beyond our expectations, community providers, physician groups, and especially nonprofits to navigate complexity, because delivering care is only part of our challenge. We assist with operational and financial performance, revenue integrity, compliance, talent strategies, and benefits that support well-being and mental health that also help prevent burnout. Whether it's a strategic one-day project or daily guidance, our goal is to help clinical and administrative teams do their best work. What I think I'm most proud of is our commitment that goes beyond just the work we do. Through CBIZ Cares, our employee volunteer program, thousands of hours annually supporting literacy and STEM programs, back to school drives, mentorship, and community health initiatives. We believe every employee deserves the time necessary to give back to our community. And that in turn gives every student the opportunity and access to a quality education, and every patient deserves dignity, and we invest our time and resources accordingly. If you lead, which everyone in this room does, in healthcare and education, you're navigating challenges that are complex and urgent. And we're here today and every day beyond to help turn pressure into progress, responsibly, sustainably, and with a shared sense of purpose. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this conversation. I know myself and my team members from CBIZ are looking forward to today listening, learning, and advancing this mission together. Thank you.
As a teacher, usually my voice carries without the microphone, so good morning. My name is Steve Stunder. I'm the Executive Director of the Life Skills Through Career program at Chestnut Hill College, in addition to being our Director of Neurodiversity Initiatives. Wanted to take a brief moment to just talk a little bit about what we do at Chestnut Hill, because I think it dovetails very nicely into the conversation that we're going to have here today. We have two distinct programs at Chestnut Hill College, one for self-identified neurodivergent college students who are degree seeking, who receive extra supports in their time at Chestnut Hill. And we also have a program that we're launching in the next month or so for developmentally disabled adults for vocational training, life skills, and family systems and supports. We are the only college in the state of Pennsylvania who has achieved adult training facility 2380 licensure through the Office of Developmental Programs. So we're excited to kind of set the gold standard for how to help individuals move into the workforce with dignity and choice. So I think that frames a little bit about what we're going to talk about here today, and it gives us an opportunity to learn a little bit from our panelists. So as we ask questions, I'm going to have the panelists introduce themselves and their roles So emotional health, neurodiversity, and responsible technology have moved from support services to core competencies. Students are navigating constant connectivity, rising anxiety, and rapid technological change, while employers are inheriting those realities in the workforce. Today's conversation explores how schools and organizations are redefining success, not just academically, but emotionally and ethically, and what happens when education and employment get that alignment right. So I'm going to ask our panelists, and I think we'll just go in order to my left to get things started. Please introduce yourself and your role. What's changed most in the last 5 years that makes emotional health and responsible technology no longer optional in education or work?
Is this on? Ooh, good. First try. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sally Schufrider. I'm market leader with Cigna Healthcare. Born and raised in the Philadelphia market, and I have the wonderful experience of working with employer groups across the state of Pennsylvania every single day, all shapes, sizes, and industries. So as we go through our conversation today, I'm really going to be focusing my discussion points around the employer and that perspective. So to answer your question, what's changed? I would say quite a bit. One thing I think about is our workforce is different. There are 5 generations that are in our workforce today, and all of those generations are wildly different. They think differently. They use different modalities to access healthcare, to engage in the workforce. Everything they do, from the baby boomers all the way down to Generation Z, seem different. So in the world that we're living in right now 57% of our workforce population fall into the millennial and Gen Z. And that population functions very differently, highly digitized, very engaged with technology. Their preferred channels tend to be texts and social media. And there's a lot that comes along with that that's negative. It's the always on mentality, which can create a lot of stress, anxiety, and depression. When you can't shut it off, your brain can't relax. So that being said, this generation that makes up 57% of our workforce has the highest levels of stress, anxiety, and depression when compared to any of the other generations. And what's scary about that is that they also are not utilizing any behavioral health resources or care. So that's something that we need to address. And I know we'll be talking about it quite a bit throughout the panel, but think about that. Stress, anxiety, making up a large percentage of the workforce, and that population is highly digitized, but is still not accessing the care that they need.
Hi, my name is Marianne Newell. I work for the Kinney Center at St. Joseph's University. We're an autism center that's located on campus, and we serve clients both in the community, and we also have a support program for undergraduates similar to Chestnut Hills, undergraduates who are on the autism spectrum. One way that I work with that population specifically is through employment, so connecting undergrads to employment, internships, training opportunities while they're with us, and then employment after they graduate. We find that that's a really nice way to help them soft launch into professional development. One thing that we've seen change in the last couple of years is the rise of virtual work, remote work, and that's both in the academic setting and also professionally. With that comes a whole new layer of social norms, professional norms. A lot of that is unwritten, and sometimes professors or employers will take for granted that these young professionals or students will just know what to do or be able to adapt. With this young professional class that's graduating into the workforce these last couple of years, making up such a significant part of the workforce, we're really seeing a need to train, especially neurodivergent young professionals, on how to adapt to those, to make sure that the rules that we're hoping everyone follows are explicitly written. We also know that neurodivergent individuals might have a harder time interpreting social norms or understanding how to act in different settings. So like I said, in an academic setting versus a professional one. So we're seeing that as a real need area for much support.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kevin Main. I'm the head of school at Hilltop Preparatory School, located in Bryn Mawr. We are the pioneer in the education of neurodiverse students, grades 5 to 12, plus post-grad years. I'm a 45-year veteran of the education field, working primarily with students with learning challenges and other barriers to their education. And I'm very thankful to be here with you this morning. I think that when we're looking at what's changed over the last 5 years, what comes to mind is that emotional health and tech have moved from the sidelines to front and center. So emotional health is kind of the engine that drives performance. And when we think about tech, it's not just a tool anymore. We're living in a tech world. So everything we do revolves around technology now, for better or worse. We can't escape it. And we see that in our students. We see it in employees with burnout, with people checking out. And it's important that we find ways to strengthen emotional health and use tech to our advantage. There was an article that came out just this week in the Harvard Business Review that talked about the fact that AI isn't really increasing the productivity. What it's doing is increasing anxiety and causing more issues in the long run. I have a child that works in the marketing industry, and they've been told they have to use AI to increase their productivity. That's great, but it's also increasing the workload and increasing the stress exponentially. We'll be talking a little bit more in a few moments about neurodiversity and how it impacts them.
Good morning. My name is Greg Martin. I serve as the head of school at Woodland School in Stratford, out on the main line. It's a privilege to be with you all today, and I want to thank Steve and Kevin for welcoming me to town in a couple different ways. Just a couple years ago, I'm in my second year at Woodland. Kevin was kind enough to reach out to me when I moved from New Jersey to take this role on, invited me over to campus, and in the spirit of what Abby shared with us this morning, made our work relational. So it's it's a friendly competition among some of our schools for students. But Steve and Woodland collaborated in helping to build the neurodivergent program at Chestnut Hill. So Steve was on campus within a month of my taking that role. So this is just a neat, for me personally, a neat moment of symbiosis. In terms of what we've seen in change in education and technology, I actually started my independent school career working in technology. I have a PhD in Shakespeare. So I'm a huge fan of old dusty texts and bringing words to life. But I got a position at Cincinnati Country Day, which was the first laptop school in the country. In 1996, they gave every student, every faculty member a laptop. And looking back on it now and seeing what's happening in our institutions, in our educational institutions, there is some regret that what we did as educators, to some extent, is we unleashed Frankenstein's monster into the world. So what has started to change for us is more focus on social emotional learning. We actually have an SEL specialist at Woodland. That was a person that was hired, developed a curriculum for us a couple years ago. And we're finding that the work that she and the team is doing to strengthen the way that people confront emotions, regulate their emotions, channel their emotions, the positive ones, is directly related to the way that they learn, how they learn, and the depth of their learning. So where schools had shied away from teaching emotion, this is something that's done in the homes, it's done by family, it's done in churches or places of worship. It's being done more and more in schools, and we're proud of that work in helping students who often, because they have learning differences, their first emotional reaction to school is negative. So many schools use a cookie cutter approach to education. We're proud of the fact Chestnut Hill, Hilltop, other schools like ours that don't approach education as a cookie cutter enterprise. We use something at Woodland called Universal Design for Learning, and we're just chatting with one of the attendees who works in architecture about how UDL came from the architectural world, where the idea was to design buildings that would be accessible to all. And that was directly related to a person's abilities and disabilities. So the educational world has done that, is starting to do that as well. And in terms of technology, we're slowing things down. We're thinking about things more purposefully. How do we use technology to strengthen what we're doing in very positive and productive ways, but also put it away at times and recognize and become aware of the dangers of its pervasiveness. So it's an exciting moment. Thank you all for being here. I look forward to conversation.
Thank you, folks. And shout out to Woodland and Hilltop for their help in working with us to develop our initiative. It was a critical piece of what it was we were putting together. So thank you for that. Just a quick show of hands. How many of you have seen technology use negatively affect focus, emotional well-being, or relationships in students or employees you work with? That's pretty much everybody. So that kind of helps frame a little bit, again, the conversation that we are having and a little bit of what Greg was talking about, kind of unleashing, that Frankenstein's monster a little bit. So I'm going to bring it back down this end. I'm going to start with Sally. Sally, in your interview with Invest, you noted behavioral health now accounts for roughly 10% of total medical spend, and employers are feeling the impact in productivity, retention, and cost. How are unmet emotional health needs showing up in the workplace? And how can responsible use of digital tools actually reduce friction instead of adding to it?
Behavioral health was something that we didn't talk about just 10 years ago. We didn't talk about it in the workplace. We didn't talk about it at home. There was a stigma that was associated with it. Now it is top of mind, and I'm so thankful that it is. But when you think about the stats, 1 in 4 people have a behavioral health condition. So look around your table. Let's say on average, we've got 8 people. You've got 2 that have a behavioral health condition at the table. But what's even more concerning about that is that half of the people that have a behavioral health condition are not getting any care or treatment. And so you might think, well, why does that matter? I mean, a lot of us have functioned in life without getting any care. Well, it creates major challenges personally, professionally, and in a lot of different ways in our society. So when you think about an employer, if you have a population of your employees that are not getting behavioral health care, they are living in an environment that is more stressed, they have anxiety, they are depressed, a lot of absenteeism, presenteeism, and huge turnover. And for anybody that is working in HR with any employer, turnover is a problem. Your talent is the most important thing to the productivity of your organization. The second part is overall health and well-being. So if I'm not treating my behavioral health condition, I'm less likely to take care of myself. So if I have a chronic condition, diabetes, am I going to fill my medication? Am I going to prioritize going for my preventive care? Likely not. And what that does is it turns it into a cost explosion. Healthcare is expensive. We hear it everywhere we go. It's something that needs to be addressed, and behavioral health is a huge issue that is generating costs because people are not taking care of themselves and their costs are rising. So the question is, well, how do we solve for this? We've got 1 in 4, half of them are not getting behavioral health care, and the people that aren't getting the behavioral health care are not as productive at work and are not as healthy overall. So at Cigna, we've done a lot of work to better understand what's driving that access to care issue. The first thing we found is that it takes on average 12 years for someone to find a behavioral health care provider. And you're all like, wait a minute, what? 12 years. And what's the reason for that? It's because it's hard to find a provider. All of us, I'm sure, have an experience where you've tried to find a provider, you're ready to seek that care. Maybe you can't find someone in network, or you found someone and you don't have a good connection with them, whatever it may be. So what we've done is we've created an environment when people are ready to access behavioral health care, we are there to meet their needs. So any Cigna member has immediate access to a therapist on call. You call into us or you digitally engage with us, you will have access to a licensed clinician to have a 45-minute session with that clinician. And then from there, we figure out what modality of care you prefer. If it's technologically or tech-enabled, we will get you to a virtual provider. If you prefer in-person, we will get you to an in-person provider. And then we do 100% follow-up where we check in with every person that we engage with to make sure that that was the right match. Because the last thing we want is it to take 12 years to get to see a provider. So taking action, and especially from an employer standpoint, making sure that you have the right resources to get your population and your employees and their dependents the care that they need.
Sally, thank you. Marianne, the transition from education to employment remains one of the biggest drop-off points for neurodiverse individuals. What are the most common barriers you see during this transition? And where do schools and employers most often underestimate what support is actually needed?
So we really identified, I'll say barriers or challenges, but I'll also say opportunities on both sides of the spectrum, so to speak. So that's both with the students that we're supporting at the college level and also with the employers that they're going into. As a college support program, we started off providing that to our students. So the main things that they benefit from are support around what we would call executive function. So organization, time management, that's very important in college and it's very important as a professional. Also hands-on experience, being an intern, learning how to function in a professional environment, just really getting that practical experience that somebody who's on the spectrum who may be thinking very literally would have a hard time conceptualizing in the abstract, right? So internships and actually getting into an office, having that relationship with a supervisor or colleagues can be so valuable. And the third thing is, as I mentioned before, just adapting to professional norms, that those unwritten social rules, those are the pieces that are really difficult for somebody who is on the spectrum, or maybe difficult for someone who's on the spectrum to adapt to. However, we found that that wasn't enough. So we were giving this really rich support to the students, but we also found that we had to prepare the world to receive them, right? So we started to implement trainings for employers. We have a lot of, we call them neurodiversity at work, training opportunities available for HR professionals, for managers, for colleagues of people who may be neurodivergent. One thing that I hear a lot when I talk to companies is, that's great. We'd love to take these trainings when we take an intern from you, for example. However, we know that about 15 to 20% of the population has some form of neurodiversity. So we're saying that those employees are already there. So it's very valuable to get this training to support, not only young professionals who are coming into your workforce, but pre-existing employees. So for employees, we really find it valuable for them to learn about what is neurodiversity, how does it present at the adult level in the workplace, and also ways that they can adapt and become more inclusive. So thinking both specific individualized accommodations, but also, as was mentioned, universal design. How can we generalize these things to make it accessible to all employees?
I think that's a great add, because I think so often we find jobs for neurodivergent individuals, but we don't think about the supports that they'll need once they get to the job. And I think that we've done a great job of getting people jobs, but I think we need to do a better job of supporting the folks around them and creating that support system in their employment situation. So thank you for that. Kevin, Hilltop was built on the idea that neurodiverse ways of thinking are assets, not deficits. How does highly personalized learning, small classes, executive functioning, coaching, and social emotional instruction help students build resilience and a healthier relationship with technology?
Thank you for that question. So at Hilltop, we operate under the belief that when environments are designed with intention, students can succeed. And it really goes back to our founding. So back in 1971, we had a foundress, Dr. Elisa Fisher, who really was ahead of her time. She was able to create a school that was the first in the region for neurodiverse learners, but probably more importantly, she embedded social emotional learning from day one. So it's part of our curriculum. Twice a week, our students are learning about themselves and how they navigate the world from a social emotional perspective. We see that, and kind of reiterating what has been said by some of my colleagues, executive function challenges. We teach them how to think for themselves so they don't outsource their confidence to technology. We teach them about the social emotional challenges, how to navigate, but also navigate conversations or relationships with one another. And I'm going to go on a little soapbox here for a minute, and my colleagues at my table have heard me say this many, many times. There are a lot of challenges in the world. There are a lot of challenges in this country and right here at home in Pennsylvania. They're not going to be solved by a bunch of middle-aged white guys sitting around a table who all think alike, learn alike, and most importantly, problem solve alike. Thank you. When I said that, at one point I was told, well, you're a middle-aged white guy. And my husband pointed out, I am not. I'm a senior white guy. We need a world where students, neurodiverse learners, are contributing members, because if you're looking to solve a problem, I'm placing my bet on somebody who does think differently, who learns differently, but most importantly, does problem solve differently. And all of our students here are members of that category. So I think when we're looking at what are ways that all of us can help our students, it goes along with what my colleague just said about helping them in the workforce. And again, with universal design, everything that we do that's designed for neurodiverse learners helps us all.
Thank you, Kevin. Greg, in your interview with Invest, you talked about self-advocacy as one of the most critical skills students develop at Woodland. Why is that capability, knowing how to ask for support and navigate systems, becoming so essential in today's workplaces and in life?
Yeah, self-advocacy is one of the two pillars of our student outcomes at Woodland School. The other is critical thinking. In terms of self-advocacy, it's important to us at Woodland that we're preparing students to go out into the world and to speak for themselves and to other people with confidence and in productive ways. So often in workforces and in educational institutions, we've been taught in years past to put your head down, get things done by yourself. And we all know that collaboration is one of the keys to our success. And as Kevin pointed out, collaborating with people that are different from you, the basic principle behind the D School, the Stanford D School, is you assemble a team of people that are very different from one another because it's the perspectives that they bring to the table that help enrich the problem-solving component of the task. If you come to that table and you are someone who is different and you are not prepared to speak for yourself and to others, then you're not going to bring the same level of productivity to that enterprise. So for us, self-advocacy is important in terms of preparing students to go off to college or to another school, to say to a professor, I learn in a way that's a little bit different from how you're teaching and from how other students succeed. That can build confidence and it can build relationships between and among people and lead to better results for teams and in educational institutions and for our economy as well.
And I can add, we have students at Chestnut Hill College from both Hilltop and Woodland, and I think that we see that. I think that one of the great things about having this conversation today is to sit here with my colleagues, because the things that they're talking about we see in higher education, and we hope we will see in the workforce as those students learn the skills necessary to be self-advocates and be independent and move into the workforce. So I'm gonna give lots of props to my friends at Hilltop at Woodland for that. So thank you. All right, so for everybody, and we'll go right down the line, a couple of quick hits here. How can schools and employers align more intentionally around emotional health, neurodiversity, and responsible technology use? So start with Sally.
So, talk a lot about behavioral health, and autism is a behavioral health diagnosis. And as we know, 1 in 31 have autism today. So everywhere you go, every conversation you're in, this is a very important topic, and especially in the workplace. I'm the mother of a profoundly autistic 6-year-old son who's nonverbal. So when you think about autism, there's a huge spectrum of autism, and everybody has different interactions around what that looks like. In the workplace, when you have that 1 in 31 stat around people that have autism, you also have to think about the caregivers, so the people like me, who are really stressed out. It's not an easy system to navigate if it's, maybe you're higher functioning and you're in a school environment, or you're going to higher education or into the work world. Or if you're in a situation like mine where you're probably going to need some lifelong support. But when you think about the caregivers in the workplace, that's a very unique behavioral health environment to be in. You're stressed, you're working a full-time job, and when you go home, you're also working a full-time job. So it's really important for employers to think about ways that they can provide the right tools and resources to the caregivers within their workplace. And a lot of the time, those caregivers go unknown. But I will tell you that 72% of the workplace today are a caregiver in some way, shape, or form. Raise your hand if you're a caregiver. It's your parent, it's your child, it's your someone, right? And it's not easy. So I think it's important for us to think about the tools that we can provide that complement when a caregiver's schedule has the time to take care of these things. So if it is around behavioral health, you need to have tools that are available after hours. If it's about support, you need to have support that's available when it makes sense for that caregiver. So I think it's really important to remember those caregivers, because you are the people, everyone here in this room that raised their hand or didn't, that are doing such amazing things in the workplace and at home. We've had a lot of success with designing a really intentional internship program for our students. And I say for our students, but I think it's also benefited the employers who are taking those interns as well. We have a handful of community partners who will take an intern from us each summer. And we very specifically set up those partnerships. They're across many different fields. We have wealth management, insurance, cybersecurity, among others, to pull students from our program. When we sat down and had those initial conversations with them, we were talking about where might be a good fit. So among the different teams or managers, who would be a good fit to take this on? Internships are really lovely because they are time limited. They don't have to be full time. There's nothing permanent about them. And so they can sort of serve as this testing environment for this. And we'll troubleshoot each year, right? So we'll kind of improve on things that need to be improved on, continue things that were going really well. Once we've established the role that the intern will play, we'll kind of assess our candidate pool so that our students who are in our autism college support program, we'll find some good matches, send them along. They'll go through the typical interview process, usually the typical onboarding process for anyone who's accepted. They'll get support from us. The employers will get training from us about neurodiversity at work, neurodiversity, autism in college. And then we provide consultation for both parties the whole way through, so the whole summer. And we've had a lot of success with that. We find that it helps employers to learn more about neurodiversity in general. They're saying, we've learned how to be more inclusive. We're better able to support the neurodivergent employees that we already have. And then obviously, like I mentioned, the students are getting a really wonderful experience out of that hands-on experience, bringing it from the abstract into the concrete. That's been really helpful for them and for everyone.
Kind of building on what Marian just said, we offer a 3-year elective curriculum called Employability and Transition, where students actually do a number of internship hours on campus first, and then go out into the world at places like Clean Logic, Plush Mills, Community Partnership School right here in the city. They also do a number of initiatives, one coming up, if anybody here is looking for a dress. Our students accumulate 400, that's 400 dresses, both evening and prom gowns, and they sell them to students who can't afford to pay the exorbitant prices of them. $10 for, I'm doing an ad, $10 for a short dress, $20 for a long dress. And there's Chanel, I mean, you name it. There's, I had first dibs on those for my daughters, by the way. What we do is we teach the students applicable skills that they can then take, apply them to their curriculum, and also, as Marianne was saying, go out into the community and teach others that neurodiverse thinking is not something that is abhorrent or they should be afraid of, but it's something they should embrace. And the students have to research a nonprofit, look at their P&L, then they choose which one they're going to donate the funds to, and they raise several $1,000s that they then donate to that nonprofit. And this year, it's the Urban League of Philadelphia. The dress sale is at the end of the month, so if anybody's interested, please go to our website. You can find out more about it. But most importantly, our students are learning a number of skills, and you often hear about soft skills. As part of the curriculum, they learn 30 different soft skills. And I think soft skills gets a bad rap. There's nothing soft about them. Those are the skills that are going to help them navigate in a neurotypical world while embracing and showing people the power of neurodiversity and what they can do in the workplace.
We have a group of students that we in fact, making our way down here this morning, we may have passed a group of my students going to the Philadelphia airport to leave for Quebec today. Mark Twain said that travel is fatal to prejudice and bigotry. Neurodivergent students need to also learn about the ways that other people in the world lead their lives, how they see their worlds and experience them. So we're very proud of a program that we have at Woodland called Warriors Around, what are the Woodland Warriors? Warriors Around the World. This has been going for several years now. Our kids have traveled extensively in the United States, but also all around the world. And this is just one example of this, where we introduce our students in high school to different ways of life. And that's something that's pretty exceptional for a group of students that are already different. That they're learning that their difference isn't the only difference in the world, that there are a lot of different types of differences. Sorry to use that word so often. But it's incredible to see those experiences. You don't have to travel to Quebec to learn that. You can also come downtown. And so we have a program called LEAD. It's learning through experience. And so we bring the kids to different parts of the city so that they can see how human beings conduct themselves in different settings and take away some learning from it. We love the learning that happens in the classroom. We are very proud of the fact that we teach children to read who have been set aside by other educational institutions, told they'll never read, and we get them to read. That's a profound difference maker in a human being's life, the ability to be literate, read, and make a contribution to one's community. That happens in a classroom, but there are great things that happen outside of classrooms as well. And so we're really proud of the fact that we're taking neurodivergence to the road.
Thank you. So to wrap things up, we're going to go with one final question for our group. I'm going to answer this one too. If emotional health and responsible technology are truly foundational skills, what is one bold change in policy, culture, or investment that must happen now to ensure lasting impact for the next generation of students and workers? I'm a firm believer in that there is a difference between being supportive and providing support. Being supportive is creating programs for neurodivergent individuals is a great idea and it's wonderful. Providing support is doing things like hiring folks and accepting them into your communities. That's providing support. So my bold change would be move from being supportive to providing support.
I love that. That's great. I would say it's really three quick things for me from an employer standpoint. I think number one is create a culture of acceptance because stigma is what's killing us. So change your culture, bring it in the conversation, and make sure that people understand that it's okay to have a behavioral health condition. It's okay to be a caregiver. And this is an accepting community of that. Number two is simplify it. Healthcare is complicated. I'm confused. I've been doing this for 25 years. Keep it simple. So when it comes to behavioral health or when it comes to supporting those caregivers or it comes to autism support, try to keep your program simple. And then finally, listen. Because like I said, when we first started talking, we have a totally different generation and that generation is driving different expectations and we need to listen. What do they want? What do they need? And where are their gaps? Because the last thing we want is to look back 5 years from now and still see that 50% of the work, or 50% of people that need behavioral health support aren't getting it.
One thing I would advocate for is the use of universal design in addition to, or perhaps in place of, in some scenarios, individual accommodations. Using universal design instead of an accommodation can be helpful in that it removes the barrier on the part of the individual to ask for those things, to re-ask for them in multiple settings. In some ways that companies can identify what universal design principles to put into place or to ask themselves, what are the pain points that keep coming up? So what are questions that you keep getting asked in an interview? What are issues that keep coming up when you're onboarding folks? What are things that you can smooth out and just make applicable to everyone that could make things easier? You may have employees, interns coming from a school like St. Joe's. You may have neurodivergent employees who have not disclosed their diagnosis to you. And this is a way to signal that you are accepting and inclusive, and also a way to minimize the retroactive work that might happen after issues arise.
I'd have to say that I would hope that more schools and more organizations embrace both emotional regulation and tech regulation, emotional health tech regulation, as core competencies. So it's built into other competencies within the organization. It's also important that there is community. And I just wanted to use this opportunity to do a shout out to my community. So right over here at this table, I have an alum from Hilltop who also works at Vanguard. I have someone who heads up our Neurodiversity Success Center, board member, advancement, one of our parents, and our money person. Always good to have a good money person.
I would respond and say, you know, what we're doing today is precisely the bold kind of thing that needs to be done to partner with K-12s, pre-K-12s, higher education, medical, business, legal professionals to overlap and understand what we all do together. We're all in this together, and human beings want to feel like they can make a contribution to their communities, feel proud of giving something back when they're taking things from their community. And so it's this kind of sharing of ideas and expectations. What do we expect from one another? What does the business world expect from education so that we can better prepare students for their journeys to higher education, or right into the business world, right into medical field, right in the legal fields, and make a contribution to their community. So I think today having conversations and sharing ideas with one another is exactly strangely enough, the bold kind of thing that needs to be done.
Well, we appreciate this opportunity to join you all here today. I want to give a special thanks to my colleagues here. You know, Sally at Cigna, I'm a licensed therapist, so I understand the challenges related to healthcare. Marianne, I am a proud St. Joe's alum, so shout out to the Hawks right here, right? Yep.
Woohoo.
And then my friends at Hilltop and Woodland, we appreciate your continued collaboration and partnership at Chestnut Hill. Want to thank all of you and our panelists for being here today, and we appreciate continuing to work together to provide opportunities for neurodivergent individuals, both in school and in the workplace. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you all.